World Politics Since 1989 by Jonathan Holslag is a comprehensive and insightful book that provides a detailed overview of the major events and trends in international relations since the end of the Cold War. Holslag argues that the post-Cold War era has been characterized by a number of key developments, including the rise of globalization, the decline of Western hegemony, and the emergence of new powers such as China and Russia. He also examines the challenges that these developments have posed for international order, and suggests possible ways forward. Holslag's book is well written and engaging, and it is a valuable resource for anyone interested in understanding the current state of world politics. It is particularly helpful in making sense of the complex and often contradictory trends that are shaping the international landscape today. Here are some of the key takeaways from the book. 1. The end of the Cold War did not usher in a period of peace and stability, as many had hoped. Instead, the world has become more multipolar, with a number of rising powers challenging the established order. 2. Globalization has had a profound impact on the world economy and on international relations. It has created new opportunities for cooperation and integration, but it has also led to increased inequality and instability. 3. Western hegemony is in decline, as other powers such as China and Russia are challenging the United States' dominance. This is leading to a more competitive and unpredictable international environment. 4. The world is facing a number of major challenges, such as climate change, terrorism, and inequality. These challenges will require new forms of cooperation and leadership. Holslag's book is a timely and important contribution to our understanding of the world we live in. It is a must-read for anyone who wants to understand the dynamics of international relations in the 21st century. Act 1. Missed Opportunities, 1989-2000. The first act of Holslag's book chronicles the immediate aftermath of the Cold War, a period marked by optimism and hope for a new era of peace and prosperity. However, Holslag argues that the West squandered this opportunity by failing to seize the initiative and provide clear leadership. 1. The West's failure to heed warnings. Holslag argues that the West was warned about the dangers of complacency and hubris, but failed to take these warnings seriously. 1. This led to a series of missed opportunities to shape the post-Cold War order in a more constructive way. 2. The rise of consumerism. The end of the Cold War led to a surge in consumerism, which Holslag argues diverted attention away from more pressing global challenges. 2. This consumerism also contributed to growing inequality and environmental degradation. 3. Unbalanced trade. Holslag argues that the West's economic policies created an unbalanced trading system that benefited its own interests at the expense of other countries. 3. This imbalance led to resentment and distrust, which has undermined cooperation in the international system. 4. The emergence of new rivals. Holslag argues that the West's focus on its own internal affairs allowed other powers, such as China and Russia, to grow stronger and challenge its dominance. 4. This has led to a more multipolar world, with a greater potential for conflict. Overall, Act 1 of World Politics Since 1989 paints a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency and the importance of clear leadership. Holslag argues that the West's failure to seize the opportunities of the post-Cold War era has led to a more complex and uncertain world, and that it is now facing a number of serious challenges that will require new forms of cooperation and leadership. Act 2. Lost Momentum, 2001-2019. The second act of Holslag's book examines the period from 2001 to 2019, a time characterized by a series of crises and conflicts that have further eroded the West's dominance and led to a more fragmented and unpredictable world order. 1. The 9/11 attacks and the War on Terror. Holslag argues that the 9/11 attacks had a profound impact on the West, leading to a focus on security at the expense of other priorities. 1. This focus on security has led to a number of costly wars and interventions, and has also undermined civil liberties and human rights. 2. The financial crisis of 2008. The financial crisis of 2008 further exposed the flaws of the West's economic system, and led to a loss of confidence in Western leadership. 2. The crisis also contributed to a rise in populism and nationalism, which has further divided the international community. 3. The rise of China. China's rapid economic growth has made it a major power in the world, and has challenged the United States' dominance. 3. Holslag argues that China's rise has also led to a more assertive China, which has been willing to challenge the West's interests and values. 4. The decline of multilateralism. Holslag argues that the West's focus on security and its own interests has led to a decline in multilateralism, the cooperation between nations to address common challenges. 4. This decline in multilateralism has made it more difficult to address global challenges such as climate change and terrorism. Overall, Act 2 of World Politics since 1989 paints a picture of a world in flux, where the West is no longer the unchallenged leader. Holslag argues that the West needs to adapt to this new reality by adopting a more inclusive and cooperative approach to international relations. Act 3. Fragmentation and Crisis, 2020-present. The third and final act of Holslag's book examines the current period, characterized by a continued decline of Western hegemony, the rise of new powers, and a growing number of global challenges. Key themes. 1. The COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated existing global inequalities and caused significant economic damage, highlighting the vulnerability of the international system. 2. The resurgence of populism and nationalism. Populist and nationalist movements have gained traction around the world, challenging traditional institutions and cooperation. 3. The rise of emerging powers. China and other emerging powers have continued to grow in influence, challenging the established order. 4. The increasing complexity of global challenges. Climate change, terrorism, cyber warfare, and other global challenges have become more complex and interconnected. Overall, Act 3 of World Politics since 1989 paints a picture of a world facing unprecedented challenges and uncertainties. Holslag argues that the world needs to find new ways of cooperation and governance to address these challenges and prevent further fragmentation. In addition to these key themes, Act 3 also explores the following topics. 1. The impact of technology on international relations. 2. The changing role of the United Nations. 3. The future of democracy in a multipolar world. Holslag concludes the book by arguing that the world is at a crossroads, and that the choices it makes today will determine its future. He calls for a more inclusive and equitable international order, based on cooperation and multilateralism. In the concluding chapter of World Politics since 1989, Jonathan Holslag paints a sobering picture of the current state of the world and offers a call to action for the future. He argues that the post-Cold War era has been marked by a series of missed opportunities, squandered leadership, and rising challenges. The West, once the undisputed leader of the world, has lost its way, becoming complacent, inward-looking, and increasingly divided. Meanwhile, emerging powers like China and Russia have challenged the established order, while populism and nationalism have eroded cooperation and multilateralism. Holslag warns that the world is facing a series of interconnected crises, from climate change and inequality to terrorism and cyber warfare. These challenges demand new forms of cooperation and leadership, but the current international system is ill-equipped to address them. In response to these challenges, Holslag calls for a new paradigm for international relations, one based on cooperation, multilateralism, and global citizenship. He argues that the world needs to move beyond the outdated model of power politics and embrace a more inclusive and equitable system. Central to Holslag's vision is the need for a strong and effective United Nations. He believes that the UN is the only institution with the potential to bring together the world's nations and address global challenges collectively. However, he also acknowledges that the UN needs to be reformed and strengthened to meet the demands of the 21st century. Ultimately, Holslag's conclusion is a plea for a more hopeful and optimistic future. He believes that the world has the potential to overcome its challenges and create a more just and equitable world. However, he also warns that this will require a collective effort and a commitment to cooperation and multilateralism.